we'll see the tax rise from £69 to £71. Further reform is expected on the 1st of May when children under 12 will no longer have to pay the duty, although one or two airlines have already abolished it, so check with the airline. You might be having discounts already. Children under 16 will be exempt from March 2016. ABTA said from these changes, travellers taking long-haul flights will benefit from the removal of air passenger duties bands C and D. This will make destinations such as Australia, India and Brazil more accessible to Britons, while travellers to the Caribbean will no longer face competitive disadvantage compared to destinations such as Hawaii. If you're not aware, there was more tax to fly to the Caribbean than there was to fly to Hawaii under the old system, which makes no sense whatsoever. The statement continued, while this is undoubtedly good news for holidaymakers, British travellers will still face the highest air taxes on air travel anywhere in Europe, and ABTA, along with other members of the Fair Tax on Flying campaign, is as committed as ever as making the case against the damaging tax. Be good to see whether flights actually do come down or whether there'll be something else to put the money back into the price of the ticket. But anyway, let me know what you think. Will these slight reductions in the price of your ticket make you more inclined to fly or not? Facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show.
Seklo Sounds is based at the Old Rectory, the home of our studio partner Interaction MK. They've been bringing arts to life in Milton Keynes for over 35 years. They use the arts to improve the life chances of disabled people and others in challenging circumstances through shared creative activity. These programs help participants to develop creative, personal and social skills. You can visit them at www.interactionmk.org.uk.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Ryanair have been in the news again. Now there's an investigation underway after two Ryanair planes collided in Dublin Airport. The aircraft, one was bound for ZR and the other for Edinburgh, were taxiing on the runway when, according to Ryanair, the winglet of one aircraft appears to have scraped the tail fin of another. The statement went, both aircraft are under the instruction of the Dublin Airport Air Traffic Control at the time. And it said customers were bussed back to the terminal and have boarded replacement aircraft to continue their journeys. And they also said that Ryanair apologises for any inconvenience caused. Because it was a slight crash, the emergency services were still called, but there was no injuries. Dublin Airport said the ground incident has caused some delays to some departures, but arrivals were operating as normally. This is the third reported incident of this kind with Ryanair in the last year. Back in October last year, two planes clipped each other while taxiing to the runway in Dublin. Just like this one, the winglet of one scraping against the tail of the other. And in July last year, two Ryanair jets collided on the ground at Stansted Airport. Again, wingtip of one hit the tail cone of another. Somebody needs to be able to park properly. I'll be no good. I can't parallel park. There's no way I'll be able to get a plane from A to B along the taxiway. If you were caught up in these delays, let me know. Facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. A study has found that if somebody's apologised to, they're less likely to seek compensation from the travel company. It says that most holiday makers who sustain relatively minor injuries while on holiday only want courtesy and not compensation from operators, according to the survey. But the poll of more than 650 people, which by a law firm, so perhaps they were looking for more customers, found that only 4% of those who had suffered an accident overseas were contacted by the companies of which they booked the package holiday after returning home. And 3/4 expected tour operators to provide travel and medical assistance in the event of them being injured while on holiday. Michael Walker, a lawyer representing the company, which is JMW Solicitors, carried out the research and suggested that the absence of clarity about what tourists were entitled to made matters worse. And I have to agree with that. An awful lot of people think they're entitled to stuff they're really not. They never read the small print. He went on to say that customers put a great deal of faith in companies with which they book their holidays. The majority of tourists with whom we spoke shared the belief that once they pay for their trips, operators would have a responsibility to look after them during their time away. Sadly, we found that holidaymakers' goodwill is rarely reciprocated. Instead, individuals only discover confusion about what support they're entitled to when problems arise. Not only do people injured through no fault of their own seem to face a lack of support from their tour operator while abroad, they also have the onerous task of trying to prove that they weren't to blame. Furthermore, very few of those experiencing difficulties had any contact with the operators to make sure that they were okay after they returned home. It is perhaps only because we regard holidays as being unlike most other purchases that we have not seen holiday companies on the end of the criticism which has dogged other retailers such as e-commerce in particular years. So he's saying people are probably not complaining as much as they should do. He went on to say that even simple communication might be enough to reduce the torment, which is his word, not mine, which tourists can go through. He went on, regularly the clients we work with who have been injured abroad tell us that their disappointment at the tour operator's lack of acknowledgement to their injury. That acknowledgement, an apology, and the potential of setting things right means so much to the vast majority of our clients, and often can be a driving force behind the individual's choice of making a claim. Making clear what tour operators and indeed holiday makers can or should do when people book their holidays is relatively straightforward, but could be enough to avoid adding insult to quite an unfortunate injury. Sorry, I couldn't read my handwriting there. I'm a bit sorry about that. Have you had to make a claim? Have you had an injury or something happened to you while you're on holiday and you've been completely upset about the lack of care you had? I mean, my first trip to Mexico, first package holiday, whole hotel near enough come down with a really bad stomach. Tour operator did not care one bit. He just said it's our fault for drinking too much alcohol or being out in the sun or whatever. But no, we can't all have been doing that. But yeah, that was back then. Hopefully things have changed now. But what do you think? What happened when you were ill or injured? What did the tour company do for you? Facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. More than 20 passengers of an Air Canada Airbus A320 were admitted to hospital after it landed in snow in Halifax International Airport, which is in Nova Scotia. The airline confirmed that 23 passengers and crew sustained non-life-threatening injuries and were taken to local hospitals for observation and treatment. All but one of them were released from hospital following the incident which happened in the early hours of last week. The A320, flying from Toronto and carrying 133 passengers and 5 crew, was involved in an incident upon landing at Halifax International, the carrier said. Local reports suggested the aircraft struck a power pylon after touching down short of the runway and skidding to a halt. The nose cone and an engine detached and a wing was severely damaged, according to local CBC News. Air Canada's Chief Operating Officer said that we at Air Canada are greatly relieved that no one was critically injured, yet we fully appreciate this has been a very unsettling experience for our customers and their families, as well as to our employees, and we are focused on caring for all those affected. We will fully cooperate with the Transportation Safety Board as it begins an investigation to determine the cause. Yeah, that sounds a bit scary, doesn't it? Have you been involved in a small plane crash like this? Well, not small, because 23 people were injured, but you know what I mean, nobody was killed. Was you involved in a crash landing? What happened? How were you looked after? Facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. It may have escaped your notice, but there's an election going on at the moment, and different parties are saying different things. Well, for a little bit longer, they've had Gatwick and Heathrow doing a similar sort of thing as they're jostling to be the one that gets chosen for the airport expansion, which should be announced in June, probably, maybe, who knows. But anyway, the latest thing from Heathrow is they're proposing to reduce domestic passenger charges by £10 from January 2016, under new proposals put forward by the airport. The charge for airlines flying from Heathrow would be reduced by a third, apparently, from $29.99 to $19.59 for passengers flying to UK airports. If you're wondering where this charge is on your flight ticket, it comes under the section taxes. Okay, so it's not always taxes, it's the cost of the airline having to use the airport as well. It hopes that the proposed reductions, which will, as I say, will perhaps be January next year, will make both domestic connectivity and transferring through Heathrow all the more attractive. The changes follow recommendations made last month by the National Connectivity Task Force, which identified the need to make routes to regional airports more attractive to airlines. Heathrow has seen domestic connectivity fall from 18 routes served in 1990 to just 7 today. Heathrow CEO John Holland Kay said, "We are serious when we say that Heathrow is committed to making sure that businesses across Britain can benefit from the connections to growth markets that only the UK's hub can provide, while incentivising only the quietest and cleanest planes to operate from Heathrow. Our proposal to cut passenger charges by a third for domestic service will help us to continue to drive the tourism, exports, inbound tourism and foreign direct investment that supports economic growth across the whole of the UK." Well, isn't that nice? Would you be more inclined to use Heathrow and fly from north of England or Scotland or Wales instead of driving down? Let me know. Would you fly or drive? Facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Lufthansa has put aside an additional $300 million to cover possible costs after the crash in France. The carrier, which owns Germanwings, said the money would cover all costs arising in connection with the case. A spokesperson for the airline said that the company's insurers have already set aside the funds, with the majority being spent on financial compensation for relatives of those killed. Also, it was announced that it would pay an additional sum of $54,000 to relatives of passengers killed on the flight. A French prosecutor last week reported that the black box recordings indicate that the co-pilot deliberately crashed the aircraft after locking the cabin out of the cockpit. The airline has confirmed that the co-pilot of the crashed Germanwings passenger plane informed the Lufthansa flight school in 2009 that he experienced a serious depressive episode. In the medical documents he submitted in connection with resuming his flight training, he informed them about a previous episode of severe depression. Lufthansa said that they will continue to provide the investigating authorities with its full and unlimited support, as they've already confirmed to the public that the co-pilot held a fully valid Class 1 medical certificate. Lufthansa has also announced that it has cancelled plans to celebrate its 60th anniversary on the 15th of April and instead hold a memorial for those that died during the crash. And that's the end of travel news. We've reached the end of another travel show. I hope you found the information on the Faroe Islands informative and perhaps it's made you want to visit there. It's definitely somewhere I want to visit. I'm not really a hot place person. I only go to the places that are hot because my wife orders it. Suggests that we go there. But I'd much rather go somewhere with a climate more like England or South Scotland. If you've been, please share your photos at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show and use the same website, the same Facebook page if there's any comments you want to make about the show. And I'll be putting a website link to the Faroe Islands tourist board on there too. I hope you can join me next week on the John Guinn Travel Show on setclosesounds.org, where each week I'm checking it out before you check in.
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture and much more to 84,000 people every month. Plus news, views and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.